Well, if they weren't set up to be successful, that's $120,000 that have just gone down the drain. That could have been in your pocket or could have been used for something else. If you're a law firm and you're looking to hire a COO or you already have a COO, this video is going to be great for you because I'm going to talk about the 3 reasons why COOs for law firms fail. And it can be an expensive failure. Now, to get a good understanding, let's just lay a couple of groundworks, or I guess say foundational things. A COO is a chief operating officer. And there are a number of reasons why a law firm may hire a COO. But here are a couple of the most common ones is your firm has gotten to a point where as the owner or as the partners, you don't want to be in the detail or you don't need to be in the details for the firm to actually be successful. Now, that may be because you're a lawyer who wants to really just focus on practicing law. You don't want to deal with the business side of running the firm. Or maybe you're a lawyer who said, you know what, I want to be the CEO of the firm. I want to focus on strategy and not so much in the details. Or maybe you've just gotten to a point where you're like, you know what? I actually want to get a little bit of my life back because, hey, this law firm has been consuming so much of my waking energy, all of my time. And I want to get a little bit more life than work back. And I think any of those reasons can be a phenomenal and a great reason. But when you're ready to bring on a COO, a lot of times those are the things that the COO is going to help with and kind of address. Now, I will say when you bring on a COO, it is a pretty big decision because a COO, the cost of a COO could be anywhere from $100,000 a year to 400 plus $1,000 a year. Now, of course, 400,000 is probably one of the really big, really large law firms on even on the smaller end. I would say if you're getting a full-time COO, it's probably somewhere around, $100,000 and up because this person is going to be a more senior leader in the firm. They're going to actually help the firm be more productive, to be more successful. So you want to make sure that you set them up for success. Now, for the rest of the video, I'm going to talk about 3 of the most common things that I've seen that lead COOs to fail. And as I said, they're an expensive role. So that can be an expensive failure in your business. Like imagine you hired a COO and let's say, based on where you are, you're paying them $120,000 a year. Well, if they weren't set up to be successful, that's $120,000 that have just gone down the drain. That could have been in your pocket or could have been used for something else. So these 3 tips are going to be very helpful. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is when I see law firms that have either struggled or they're thinking about having a COO, I'll tell them, here's the first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have math-based goals. Now, that may sound a little strange, so let me explain. A math-based goal really is that we can actually do the math to actually calculate like what does this mean? Now, some bad examples that I've seen is I talk to law firm owners or partners and they say, I just want to make more money, or I want my life to be less stressful, or hey, I don't want to have to deal with the headaches, so I'm going to bring on a COO. Well, all of that may sound noble and good, but think about it from the COO's perspective. When you bring the COO on, they have no idea how they are going to actually achieve that. To be honest with you, it's not very clear what the goal is. So I always compare it to this way. Let's say if you and I got into a car and let's say I was driving. I sat in the seat and you said, "All right, take me where I want to go." The first question I'm going to ask is, where do you want to go? You have to give me something tangible, something concrete. And the same thing with your COO is you have to give that COO a much clearer picture of what are we trying to do. Now, your life being less stressful or you not being in the details or you making more money may be a good thing, but we got to make it a little bit clearer. Something like, hey, we want to increase profitability by 5%, or hey, we want our staff, their productivity to be at least 90% of their targets. Or hey, we want at least a 24-hour turnaround in when we respond to clients, so those clients aren't calling you with all these urgent requests. See, those become more clear things that the COO can actually go implement. Now, in cases I've seen different firms that fail is because they hired a COO and they gave them this vague goal to go after, and the COO was not able to achieve it. So you want to make your goals math based. Now, I do know that can be a little scary. And this is why I always tell people is this is where a CFO comes in, a chief financial officer. Now, you don't have to hire a CFO full time. You can do an outsourced CFO to come in to do an analysis to really help you understand where is your business today? What do the numbers look like? And then help you set the target so your COO has a very clear picture of what they need to go do. Now, the second one is about authority. You have to give your COO some level of authority and some clarity about what they have the ability to do. Now, this is probably the most frustrating thing that I've seen for COOs that get hired is they get hired and the firm owner or the partners of the firm don't give this person really much authority to make decisions or much authority to actually come to conclusions. So what the COO ends up doing is doing all this research, assessing things. They bring it to the partners, and the partners are like, well, we'll see what we do. And to be honest with you, if you have a really good COO, eventually that is going to drive them crazy. Plus, they are eventually going to get to the point where they won't make any decisions. They'll just bring everything back to you as the partner, and then you are going to be back in the same stressful position that you were in before you hired them. The only thing now is you're still going to be out at least $100,000 because you still have to pay this person that you did not give a certain level of authority. Now, I am not saying that you should give the COO the right to do whatever it is that they want, but when you do bring them on, you should make it very clear what do they have the ability to do on their own, and then what decisions do they need to bring to you. For example, let's say if the COO is supposed to really manage the staff and the COO comes to you and says, hey, I've done my assessment with this staff member. They've been, and I think we should exit this person out of the firm because here's where their performance is. They're consistently below their targets and they're not doing and delivering what they should be delivering. The question that you have to answer as the firm owner is, okay, what are you going to do when your COO brings that to you? Will you tell the COO, okay, all right, I'll look at your research and then we'll come to a conclusion? Or do you tell your COO something like, well, I really don't think we can run this without them. So we're just going to have to figure out how to make it work with them still on the team. What I will tell you is a lot of COOs have heard the second one, and I've never seen that work out very well in any type of law firm because you have to make a decision, even if it is at a point that, hey, you're not going to let the COO fire them. Maybe you want to be the last person that decides, but you have to give some credibility to what the COO brings to you. Or maybe you've gotten to the point where you can say, hey, COO, if this is your assessment, then that's what we will do. Now, you got to get to a point of comfort with who your COO is to give them that level of authority. But at the end of the day, you should give them some clarity about what they are able to do, what types of decisions they can make with or without you. That way, they're not spinning their wheels doing something and then having to sit on their hands and wait for you to finally get around to it. Now, the third one, and this is probably by far the most critical one. After you've set math based goals, after you've made it clear what their authority is, it's you want to make sure that they have access to the right level of data. See, here's the thing about any COO that is good at their job is they're going to need the data to determine if they are headed the right direction. because you've already made it clear what your goal is. Well, the only way for us to know that we're actually going the right way and that we're actually going to achieve the objective is by looking at the data and the numbers along the way. Because as you're looking at the data, if you see something that's off, the COO can then get in there and make some changes to make sure that you keep the organization on track. Like, I heard this example and I thought it really landed well. And so imagine that you were going on a trip and we were going to one of your favorite destinations. I'm talking like a bucket list type of destinations, and we had a private flight. So you get on the plane, you get comfortable, you get seated, and then about 30 minutes into your flight, the pilot comes on and the pilot tells you, hey, all of the navigation systems have gone out. We really don't have a map. The compass isn't working. So we're not completely sure where we are, but we're going to kind of feel our way through this, and eventually, or hopefully, we'll get you to your destination. Now, as the passenger on that plane, how comfortable would you feel about the situation you are in? And to be honest, that's kind of what it's like when you have a COO who doesn't have access to the right data that they need to actually guide the firm in the direction it should go for you to achieve the goals that you are interested in. Now, depending on what your goal is, that will kind of determine what level of access they need or what type of data they need. I mean, in fact, we've seen this across the board for so many firms, which is why, like our firm, we started offering data analytics services, because what you will find is that data is going to be all over the place. And so with data analytics, what we do is we go into the systems, we pull the data out, analyze the data, and get the KPIs, like, take mountains of data, boil it down to the important KPIs, the metrics and the things that the COO needs to kind of monitor to make sure that, hey, is this plane still on track to get you to the destination? And when you're looking at the data, like I said, if you're not a data person, it can be quite overwhelming. I mean, I think I was in a meeting with a client and we were going through like all of their marketing data because they were spending tons of money on marketing. And they were just like, I don't know if it's working or not. And they had a COO. And I said, okay, all right, let's hop on a call. We hopped on the call. We went through the data. And what we were able to do is do some analysis and really boil it down to some key KPIs. Now, the COO has a very clear picture of what they need to manage because the data is no longer overwhelming. So, whenever situation you're in, you want to make sure that your COO has access to the right level of data. So if your COO is not a data person, you probably need to bring in someone who, like a CFO or a firm like ours, who understands data analytics, that can analyze the data and then make it clearer and simpler so you can see the very clear picture. Because the better you are about seeing how your data is performing and what your data is telling you, the better decisions that they will be able to make, and the more comfort you will have as a owner to know we are headed in the right direction. Because I have said this earlier, these three things, when they are missing, COOs tend to fail in law firms. So you want to make sure that you have math-based goals. You want to make sure that you make it clear what their authority is. And you also want to make sure they have access to the right level of data so they can actually guide the organization so that you can successfully achieve the objectives and the things that you really want as a firm owner. Hey, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to catch more of the awesome content that we promote. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.